Explosions bloomed from the titanic flanks of the Loyalist strike cruiser, heavy munitions shattering the meters-thick plate to peel open crew compartments and gun decks, sending thin plumes of debris and body parts streaming into the void, like ribbons of blood trailing a vast wounded marine leviathan. Following the trail of blood, the hunters came. Whether fighting from the surface of a world or the deck of their ships, the Death Guard were efficient, brutal killers. While the first cruiser continued ravaging the point defenses and top-mounted munitions of the Imperial vessel, the other sent sprays of boarding torpedoes and Thunderhawk craft swarming towards their prey. Like clouds of insects, troop pods and transports expelled their cargo into the skin of the Loyalist vessel, 1,000 injections of rot and decay into the already wounded giant. Skerge gave a grim smile of satisfaction as his boots kissed the deck plate, the smell of fresh blood rushing through the veins of his respirator and causing the squirming vermin that infested the bloated flesh of his right leg to writhe in anticipation of fresh death. The torpedo had burst into a gun deck towards the stern of their prey, careening half the length of the compartment and pulverizing a dozen crewmen in its passing. Survivors stared in shock as Skerge stepped forward, and behind him he heard heavy impacts as Thrael and his veterans pulled themselves free from the wreckage of the torpedo. A commotion at the far end of the deck caught his eye. Naval armsmen pouring through a set of blast doors were fanning out across the undamaged section of the deck, their discipline giving heart to the gun crews, who began to send sporadic small arms fire whining down the deck towards the Death Guard. As the first shots spanged off their armor, a low chuckle sounded from within the wreckage of the torpedo tube. A pair of sickly yellow eyes opened in the darkness, and a laugh, wet and thick, echoed across the deck. As Grune Thrael pulled himself clear of the debris, Skerge raised his banner pole high and moved aside to take his position at his lord's left flank. And then, the killing began. Thrael and his veterans swept across the deck, their mauls smashing limbs and shattering skulls as their bolters barked death at the cowering Loyalists. Skerge marched at his lord's side, as always in awe of the speed with which Grune could kill, spinning and striking with impossible speed, every move a strike, every strike a kill. Grune followed the Barbarisian art of mortisant, the already dead. Taking death as an inevitable consequence of war, followers of the art die first, then fight, giving no thought to defense as they move from strike to strike, aiming to take as many foes with them as possible. Developed 2,000 years ago by feral tribesmen braving the toxin-wreathed mountaintops of his homeworld, Thrael embodied the concept in its most perfect form. As they fought their way along the deck, Skerge felt satisfaction as his banner rammed through the chest of a guardsman, rushing Thrael from behind. It is said by mortisant masters that the first wound awakens you, the second wound sharpens you, and the third wound slows you, and the fourth is the wound that kills you. Prior to the fall, prior to the founding, prior even to Mortarion revealing his presence on the world, Skerge had guarded Thrael from the fourth wound. His own body was covered in scars where in extremis he had placed his own flesh in path of bullets and blades meant for his commander. He felt the ribcage crunch as the heavy iron boss of the banner pole shattered bone and parted flesh. Raising his new standard high, Skerge roared a wordless challenge and strode onwards, his bolter bursting armsmen as they broke at last, scattering from the onslaught as the Death Guard swept deeper into the ship, the madly strobing hazard lights turning the smooth, wreathed, blood-slick deck into a vision of hell.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Anvils of Connor YouTube channel. In today's project retrospective, we'll be taking a closer look at Legion Herald Skerge of the Death Guard, who is always closely by the side of his master, Grune Thrael, who was a Legion champion we featured a few videos back. Now, unlike Grune Thrael and Glael and the veterans, the Weapon Master veterans, who I built specifically for a 30k channel throwdown with miles of Little Legend Studio, this chap was actually built for a different event that sadly I never was able to attend. This was a Legion of Peterborough Horus Heresy narrative event where they encouraged everyone to build a Herald, and though I wasn't able to go as ever with model making, I still wanted to get stuck in honour of those chaps who organised the event. So now, as is often the case with a lot of my characters, this chap is wielding a thunder hammer, etc, etc. We'll get into that in a moment, but this chap, as you can hear from the fluff, very well written by a very close friend of mine, James. That was very difficult to record, I must say. Very long segment without breaks. I'm very much looking forward to getting some audio editing software on my computer, and being able to use it. Using a mouse with my right hand is still pretty much impossible, but if I'm able to sort that out and I can get each sentence perfect and sort of mesh them together to make it as easy a listening experience for you as possible. But I hope that wasn't too bad and didn't make your ears bleed too much. So yeah, anyway, back to the character himself. Used a vast array of different parts from loads of different kits to get this guy done. Really wanted to represent, Death Guard after the fall. Now, of course, if you know much about my force, they fell before Mortarion and Typhon, and probably around the same time as Typhon, to be fair, but as a slightly different situation orchestrated by a mysterious word bearer, but executed by the first chap who we did a focus on for my project retrospective, the Deacon. Almost lost myself there. So a bit of animosity towards the Iron Hands here, obviously, as well, with the base. But we'll go through that in just a moment in the character breakdown. So buckle yourselves in. I'll hopefully create quite an amusing video for you guys today. It's been a little while. Had a bit of a rest last week. But I'll be able to go piece by piece through the conversion of Legion Herald Skerge. Now, as tradition dictates, we'll start with a bottom-up approach when we talk through the breakdown of individual components and parts used to create Legion Herald Skerge. Before we begin though, you will have noticed so far that with every single Death Guard character I've done a project retrospective for, they've been featured in Mark III armour. Now, this isn't by any means canon. It's just a mark of armour that I feel the 14th Legion would really enjoy using, because it's sort of excellent for slow and purposeful marches forward, meat grinder sort of missions, very heavy plating, does what it needs to. They don't really need the fancy manoeuvrability per se of Mark IV, where that would probably be better suited, in my opinion, to a lot of other legions, a lot of other traitor legions indeed, like Night Lords, Sons of Horus, etc, etc. But you'll notice a lot of Mark III details on this chap, including the Medusan Immortal that embellishes his base. Now, this is a bit of an in-joke between my friend and some Iron Hands players that I know. And basically, after I did my Weapon Master Veteran squad conversion, I had an awful lot of Medusan Immortal torsos left over that were in a slightly sorrier state. I had to sort of not take apart too much the upper half, the torso section. I think I ended up selling a lot of them actually. But with this chap here, I just created him at a slant, put him under some rubble, and I've got Skerge there planting the Legion banner on top of his desecrated corpse. But I thought that was quite a neat little addition there, and also a nice opportunity to paint a bit of grey and black, as well as doing some weathering and all that kind of stuff to the actual metal, the armour itself, and some transfers. But there we go. So a lot of you will recognise his left leg, and indeed his sort of groin plate from the Legion Praetor set from Forge World, which is, in my opinion, it's old but gold, as they say. It's one of the nicest, most detailed kits that you can get in Forge World. Absolutely timeless. It may suffer slightly from being a little bit small in scale to a lot of the more modern miniatures, but obviously I've boosted the shin length there as well, added that plate on the back, and what I've done for his right leg, I've taken from the Putrid Blight Kings, which is an Age of Sigmar chaos like Nurgle squad of 5 sort of putrid knights, if you will, putrid blight lords, blight kings. That's the one. Sorry, blight lords are indeed the 40k Terminator unit for Death Guard, so not altogether inappropriate, but nonetheless, I need to source these bits, let you guys know where these bits are from as correct. So his right leg is from the Putrid Blight Kings, and I've just used some green stuff there to add some more folds of rotting flesh to sort of tuck it in underneath that groin guard, make it look very natural there. Now the upper torso is from the Templar Brethren, which is another Forge World kit for the Imperial Fists, for the 7th Legion. I had a few of these kicking about. In fact, I still do. I do have this little Imperial Fist project from a while back that I would love to finish at some point, but again, not going anywhere at this moment in time, that's for sure. But so it's a Templar Brethren upper half with that beautiful sort of pointed gorget at the top there, which I've weathered as sort of oxidized bronze. And what I've added, you can see that Legion symbol there. That is from the now sadly out of production Legion brass etch. Now I don't know if you can get these third party or from outside of the UK or whatever, or if you could just beg, steal and borrow to get hold of them. But I managed to get a couple of sheets of these a while back, and they're fantastic for things like vehicles, but also for adding a little bit of detail here as well. So added this brass etch Death Guard symbol, and I've stuck a fly from another one of the Age of Sigmar kits. I think you get on a lot of the demon stuff and a lot of the just general Nurgle bits and pieces. Some of the larger monsters and stuff like that, you can get lots of flies, swarms of flies in actual fact. And what I've done here with this one that's probably rubbing its hands together gleefully on his chest plate, I've cut that off from one of the larger swarms and stuck it on there, just sort of flattened it on the underside there so it's really adhered properly. Now the head is from another Primaris model. Oh god, throw some salt over your shoulder. No, it's from the Hellblasters kit, and you'll recognise he's got that bionic eye there. This looks very irritated on this guy, and I'll be doing close-ups throughout the course of the video with specific features that I'm going through right now, and indeed later in the painting section as well. But I've just taken, he had this little sort of classic Space Marine Mohawk style thing, so I've just taken that hair off and made him a Barbarisian baldy, as I say, just because, as I've said earlier, again, not strictly canon, but I think that it really suits a Legion who are very heavily leaning into chemical warfare, radiation and all that kind of stuff, that they would be bald as a very bald thing, yeah, bald as an egg, put it that way. Now the left arm holding the banner with an enormous amount of pride, and also to scare the shit out of any ordinary humans who are trying to orchestrate a pathetic and futile defense against this force, with a commissar strapped at the top there. But the left arm there is from one of the Dark Imperium. I think it's like a blight caller or something along those lines, noxious blight caller. But I think it's a sorcerer style character from the Dark Imperium box set. Not available anymore, I don't think. Maybe you'd be able to get hold of this on eBay or something along those lines. Again, beg, steal, borrow, ask your friends, see if they've got it. There were an enormous amount of the Death Guard Dark Imperium bits and bobs kicking around over the last few years, so I'm sure it'll be easier to source this. But it's got those 3 skulls embedded in there. The armor's starting to get a little bit wonky with this one. It's starting to get a bit wrong. He's got a little tentacle under his arm there. Again, further signs of corruption. And the actual arm itself position is perfect for holding this banner up. His right arm is from the standard Plague Marine box set of 7 multi-part models, and it's got that beautiful Legion symbol on the top there. Just a little bit of extra detail for a Legion Herald. Again, he's not totally pimped out, and he's certainly not taking very good care of his armour, or indeed the Legion serfs. He may have smashed their brains in already, who knows. This guy could be fairly similar to someone like Ignatius Grulgar, with their utter disdain for mortal serfs. Failed Marines indeed. But that is from that kit with the lovely sort of Legion symbol there. And the Thunderhammer, as I mentioned earlier, massive fan of Thunderhammers on characters. I think they just look fucking rad. But that is from Genestealer Cult Aberrants. I believe there were 2 different kits for these, but I've basically highlighted a picture from the kit that this one is from. Again, probably still available at the very least on things like eBay. And the haft for this weapon, which is some very solid wood. Again, a nice throwback to some of the sort of second edition metal Plague Marine models, I feel. But the haft is from, I believe, either like a Beastman or Warriors of Chaos style set. It could even be Marauders of Chaos, but it's from that kit, and it suits very nicely. Again, you could just plonk his standard in the floor there and just wield this thing, heft it around two-handed. It's obviously got a very low centre of gravity with that bloated leg there as well. Now, the shoulder pad for this arm is just a standard Mark III plastic shoulder pad, with a transfer obviously added over the top, a decal, like a command decal from the 14th Legion decal sheet. The backpack as well is from that same set, so it's a Mark III plastic backpack, and the accessories are just from a whole host of different kits. So you've got Frack and Crag grenades at the front there, which are from just standard tactical or Devastator style squads, maybe even from some of the Mark III or Mark IV plastics. Again with his bolt pistol, his holstered bolt pistol. Bit weird that Heralds don't get bolters, rules-wise, but there we go. He had originally been modelled with a bolter, but I think he looks a lot cooler with a Thunderhammer. I hope you guys agree. And then the two clips that he's got on the back there are also from the Medusan Immortals. So really good kit for a whole host of things. The Medusan Immortals, one of my top 5, I'd say, from Forge World. So if you haven't seen it already, I certainly recommend checking it out. So now, when it comes to the banner itself, I think the pole is 1.5 to 2 millimeters in width. And what I've done is I've taken a banner from the Demons of the Ruinstorm, or like Nurgle Demons, the Plague Bearers, and I've basically drilled through each one of those holes. They each had a skull originally inside. Very gently drilled through the middle of each, and extremely carefully with a rotary tool, I've removed that detail. And you've got those 3 empty rings there. I've added spikes from, I think, the old Chaos Space Marine vehicle sprue onto the bottom 2 sections there. And the banner itself is from the Chaos Space Marine, the Nurgle Sorcerer from Forge World. And I've just taken that off very gently, glued it onto the 2 bottom rings there, green stuffed some little additional cloth basically to wrap it round. And I've taken a bell from either a Demons of Nurgle or Chaos Space Marine, Chaos Space Marine, I keep saying that, Plague Marine kit, and added it on. I think there's a bone already on that banner, so I thought it'd be quite nice to have another couple of tips to the hat to Nurgle. And then the Commissar itself it's a couple of different things here. So the Commissar is mainly the whole body, and the head are from the Chaos Khorne Lord Jufor, so it's a Zhufor, which is a Khorne like World Eater style character that you can get in Forge World, and this is his banner top. And I've taken the plastic Commissar, the Imperial Guard Commissar, the plastic one, taken his hat and stuck it on top there. So this is a very high-ranking official within one of the militia or Imperial Guard regiments that's just being like displayed basically to strike fear into the hearts of the mortal enemies, as I said earlier, of the 14th Legion force that I command. And then the little sort of smoking sensor at the very top there. I've not done a fantastic job painting the smoke here, but you know, we learn these things over time. But that smoking sensor is from the Dark Imperium kit, as a couple of other bits in here as well. So like the left arm. So the Dark Imperium kit, it's from one of the backpacks. It's like an Anvilus style backpack. I've just taken off the top there. Again, I'll add a photo of that so you guys know what I'm talking about. So the only other thing really to mention is that the little bolts on the back of the banner securing those 3 circles of Nurgle in place. Again, these guys are pretty much full witchy poo now, but they are from a company called Grantline, who sadly don't operate anymore. But you could quite easily cut these sorts of small rivets off other kits and attach them as required. It's just adding a little bit of detail to make it a little bit more plausible overall. Now, I believe that's everything. So other than specific elements with the base, like the bricks, which I've sourced from Greenstuff World, as with the tufts as well, they're really good for this kind of stuff, and worthwhile ordering, maybe putting in an order with a bunch of friends as well, just to reduce shipping, because it does come in from Spain. But yeah, so other than bricks and stuff like that and just standard modelling sand, that's about it. So I guess let's move on to painting in a moment, but that is a sort of bit by bit breakdown of Legion Herald Skerge. This guy, I do like to use him for the rules for the banner. I think it's called Banner of the Eye. You get bonuses in combat, which is pretty awesome. Pretty decent range as well. So this is why this guy runs into combat with the veterans. And then I think rather than having, well, I could use a chaplain instead, or as well as, but this is just a nice bit of variation. And it's always nice to tick off all the specific styles of the Legion console you guys can get in your army. I think there's probably a couple that I won't ever make, like a librarian, for example, because it doesn't really fit in with Mortarian's hatred of psychers, witches. But most of the other ones I have been working through, even a Pravian, which I never thought I would, and I'm sure he will feature on this project retrospective at some point. Anyway, I'm rambling, so without further ado, let's get on to the painting. I painted Skerge around the same time that I painted champion Grune Thrael, and I think it shows. Again, it's not as good as stuff that I do now. It's still a move ahead from what I was producing only a short period before, which is always a good thing, showing some progression. You can see some attention to detail with a lot of things like the grenades, but the metal is still quite flat, for example. But there's a lot of the features using an airbrush, for example, painting in two different directions rather than one, like I did with my Weapon Master Vets. And that shows. It doesn't look terrible, but it does show. So we've got some decent shadowing here. The main difference, I'm not going to go into every single breakdown. I mean, I did wet blending for the tentacle, for example, under his arm. But I had got in contact with a chap called Carl, who runs a page called Dropship Studios. I believe that's right. If it's wrong, I'll put it underneath anyway. But I got in touch with him because he has a beautifully painted Nurgle demons kind of army, just demons in general. And really wanted to create a very sickly, sort of blotched, bruised look with his right leg. So it's sort of mutated uncontrollably. He's been given this gift by Nurgle. He can certainly plant that flag very well on the floor with a beefy leg like that. But there's a couple of boils on there and everything as well. So it was just a combination of using some pinks and highlighting them up to white, and then using a load of washes as well, so yellows and purples and reds, just to create this sort of inconsistent, extremely unhealthy looking skin tone with the leg. And other than using things like Nilac, again, just sort of dialing back a bit with its use with bits and pieces. But that's kind of it, really. So the same processes that I've used for previous paint jobs. Again, if there are any specific questions you guys have about the paint job with this guy, please don't hesitate to get in touch. I think with things like the braiding on the officer's jacket as well, it's just a little bit more careful to pick out those highlights. But otherwise, that's kind of it. So in a nutshell, that's his paint job. I really hope that you guys have enjoyed this video. Sorry it's been a short while. I just wanted to take last week off to chill a bit. I have been working kind of on a basing project, but it's an enormous amount of content basically. So I need to decide how best to break it down. I think I've got it sort of nailed, but I need to just find the time to sit down and edit, because it's going to take quite a while to do that as well. But just to go through that, and then I'll have successive videos down the line with specific tutorials as and when I get better. So, but there we have it, Legion Herald Skerge. Death to the false emperor!